So, great and mighty internet. How's it going? Been one of them days today. Actually, it was a bit of a vexing day today because I sat down and I decided to catch up on some videos on the intertubes. I've been falling a little behind. Thought I'd try and catch up. And today, I saw a video by the Nostalgia Critic, a reviewer of excellent repute. And the video I saw was the Lord of the Rings top 10 stupid moments. And I'm going to put my hand on my heart. I'm a fan of the series, I'm a fan of the films, I'm a fan of the books, I'm a fan of... Well, I'm not a massive fan of the slash fic that people, and slash art that people seem to have done about them, but still, you know, such is life. I can, however, admit that there are flaws in it, I admit that it's not perfect. And, you know, it can be difficult as a fan to admit that your favourite series or whatever has a lot of problems. But I did take issue with a couple of things that I saw on the list, and it got to the point where I was like, this is really starting to bug me, so I may have to write this down. And then this really bugs me, I may have to write this down, became, this is really bugging me, I'm going to have to make this into a video. And while it's not normally what I do, I figure what's the harm. Now, I realised that with sort of out of film knowledge, a couple of things on that list are completely gone. And with respect, he did say that he's only going with what the films have in them. So let's do that as well. Let's not try and be a dick about this and go, well, if you had read this thing... No. We're going to go with what's in the films, just what's in the films, and I'm going to try not to be an asshole about it. I guess we'll see how I do. So, like a rat down a drain pipe, we shall go down the list one at a time. And yes, some of them I will be like, yeah, whatever, move on. Number 11. Gandalf being attached to a Balrog. Well, okay, no, he wasn't actually attached to the Balrog, but Gandalf falling off the cliff and the Fellowship not saving him. The way that worked in my head was the Fellowship are quite a long way away. And when we see from the establishing shot when the Balrog turns up and everyone else is a mile away, you know, they've been running for quite some time while Gandalf faced up against the Balrog, while he sort of psyched himself up and then was like, huh? And then you shall not pass. Boom. And they're some distance away. I don't think they could have gotten back in time. But, even if they could, there's orcs around. You know, the last thing you want is the ring bearer running into orcs and getting killed. Especially if he gets killed over a chasm like that, because you know what'll happen. He'll get killed and fall in. At which point the orcs will find the thing before you do. Unless you can get a Legolas to jump down and somehow survive the fall. No. Don't credit that one. Also, like, you know what would have been bad? Just getting him shot anyway. I mean, Frodo getting hit by enough arrows, one of them's going to hit him in a place that's not covered by the mithril. Ugh. It's... Also, there are probably orcs crawling up the chasm at that point. And going near would involve tangling with them and getting bogged down, and then everybody dies. Not the best. Not if you've got the One Ring. I mean, you know, if Gandalf had been carrying the ring, then hell yes, you'd go back for him. But and also the Balrog. Gandalf told them nothing about the Balrog. They knew nothing about the Balrog other than what they'd seen, and what they'd seen was wings. If that thing could fly, and hell, it shouldn't even exist, according to conventional physics. If that thing could fly, then going anywhere near the chasm at that point would be inviting the Balrog to do the surprise! Whip you with whips of fire. It's bad times. I mean, okay, had the cinematography been done such that the whip had stayed around Gandalf's ankle and pulled him actively off the side, then yeah, that would have been better. But it's not unreasonable to assume that he was buggered from the start, really. Oh well. Oh, quick note. The reason that they start under the mountain and that they end up at the top of the mountain is because, well, for starters, they're on a mountain range. It is just walk up the mountain you're currently in. But it did take a long time, and Gandalf tells us this when he comes back. Interesting note, I did find a timeline for this, which seemed to indicate that the fight against the Balrog took 10 days. 10 days. And then Gandalf killed it and died, sort of. Anyway, number 10. The endings, yeah, that's fair. I mean, it was done ham-handedly, and I do remember at that point when I was watching it in the cinema myself, I was sitting in the cinema going, come on, I need to piss. And there wasn't time. I needed to watch the endings. I couldn't, like, I'd gone through all the way through all of this and I couldn't leave now. You know, I had to see it to the end because I knew what the actual ending was. The actual ending was the Well I'm Home ending, and I knew that. And I was slightly sad the fact that they cut out the Scouring of the Shire, which that's a side issue. But yeah, no, that was a shame. Number 9, Gimli's stupid. Oh my god, I hated that so much. I agree entirely with this one. Like, for me, the scene with Legolas and the alcohol was funny because Gimli got drunk assuming that Legolas could get drunk, which as far as I'm aware they can't. But even within the context of the film, it was still kind of funny for like him to be like, I feel something in my fingers. And then Gimli's just like, bam. But it would have been better if they just limited it to that. You know, a couple of times maybe, not all the time. Like, if they'd just been I can't see, you could have picked a better spot to stand on, I can't see a thing, and also the one with the alcohol, that would have been fine. That could have established them as buddy-buddy, and we could have gone on from there without him just being constantly the butt of every single joke. I mean, just, especially because he's supposed to be royalty or something. That's why he was chosen. Anyway. Moving on. Legolas, the perfect elf princeling. Now, I can understand what you're saying, I really can. He does look a bit too good to be true. But he's an elf, and that's what they do. You know, that's what they do. They are better than you, they're better than everyone. And, you know, they have the magic armor, they have the magic weapons, they have thousands of years of experience. I mean, we know elves can be thousands of years old because Elrond was there when the ring got lost. You know, like when they took Sauron down, they didn't kill him, they took him down. And then they were like, throw the ring into the fire. And Isildur's like, no, I will be evil now. Because Elrond was there, he's got to be thousands and thousands of years old. I mean, I think if you actually, out of film knowledge, I think he's about 6,000 years old. Legolas is about 4,000. If you'd had that long to train, you'd be pretty freaking good as well, especially given that elves don't age. Like, they just don't. They get to a certain point and then just stop. Which is why Arwen giving up her immortal life for immortal life was such a freaking big deal. So yeah, like, in fact, the Battle of Helm's Deep, they kick all manner of ass. Like, the only reason that they lost most of the people that they lost, most of the casualties they took, was because they were fighting enemies that didn't exist before. Saruman made his own. And also the weapons that they were using against them. I mean, they were kicking all manner of ass until the bomb went off. And you can see that on Theoden's face. You know, it's actually in the drama thing. It's Theoden's like, bring it. God, is that all you got? This'll be easy. And then the bomb goes off, and he's like, shit, what the hell just happened? And yeah, actually, just speaking about it, I do like the idea of Legolas firing the arrow into Mount Doom. However, I suspect that what would actually happen is that, given that Galadriel was tempted, Legolas would get to that point, he'd draw the arrow back, and he'd be like, I don't know, guys, this could be a tricky shot. I don't know. And I mean, I could. No, it's probably not a good idea. I might miss. Tell you what, let's walk with it, and I'll put it on a chain around my neck, and I'll be fine. It's precious. It's man. And then everything goes a bit wrong because he's an elven princeling and not a halfling. Anyway, number 7, the close-ups. Yeah, fair enough. Less is more. I get the feeling that for the vast majority of the ones I remember, it was because it was something to do with the ring. Like in the Prancing Pony, like when Gandalf turns up again and it's like, is it secret? Is it safe? It is because shit's weird, yo. And the ring. It's something to do with that. Then again, I suspect that many of the things to do with Gandalf that were close-up shots, seriously close-up shots, were done because forced perspective is a bitch. And having to force perspective on people when you know, having to do the whole, like, sitting one guy over here and one guy over there and have them talk to each other like they're sitting next to each other is a real pain in the ass when you can just focus on seeing McKellen's face and have done. You know, I have a feeling that was an effort-saving thing. And okay, maybe they could have done it less, but let's move on. Denethor. Number 6 is Denethor, and oh my god, what happened to him? No, I know what happened to him. One thing was missing. One thing and one thing only could have saved that whole thing and made everything he did make sense. They could have shown the Palantir at any point. Because Denethor had one. Again, this is out of film knowledge. So with this, within the films, you're absolutely right. Denethor was weird. But he was meant to have a Palantir, and the reason he'd gone mad is because he'd been talking to Sauron. And Sauron had stuck his fingers in his brain and wiggled them a bit. But then again, I mean, even within the context of the film itself, the reason that he was sending Faramir out to take Osgiliath with, like, 4 guys and a ball of string was because he wanted Faramir dead. And he told us as much. Like, Faramir's like, so would you rather I was dead and Boromir was alive? And Denethor was like, yes, I would. You bastard. How dare you be alive? And okay, I got the feeling that the reason that we were shown all that imagery was because Faramir was being sacrificed, not because war is bad. Again, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm misinterpreting, but it would have been so much better if he'd had the Palantir, and that would have solved the death scene as well, because he wouldn't have run off screaming off the side of the building, which is a bit weird. He would have lain on the pyre, clutching the Palantir like he did in the books. And that would have been a much better death scene. That would have been him, you know, either screaming or not. And it would have made it so much more powerful. So yeah, you're absolutely right. They should have they fucked up on everything to do with Denethor pretty much. And okay, there were some nice scenes, but for the most part, it was just like whatever. Anyway, number 5. I'm not dead. Yeah, okay. These are heroes. They don't die. It's like Indiana Jones should be dead. You know, like all of the cast of Star Wars should be dead. They dodge bullets all the time. This is some shit that you just expect in big damn hero territory. Especially because, like, if you didn't have this sort of thing, then it would be boring. Because what would happen is they'd die, and then the good guys would lose. And okay, you can kill off heroes, but it has to be a meaningful death, not just a random I'm falling off the side. You know. Also, interesting note: you mentioned the Mouth of Sauron scene, where the Mouth of Sauron comes out and is like, and Aragorn's like, whatevs, slice. That's not a death fake out. We know he's not dead, because if he was dead, then pretty certain Sauron would have the ring back and he'd be doing that covering Middle-earth in a Second Darkness thing that he does so well. So we know that Frodo's not dead, and I believe in that scene, or at least in the books, that point is made immediately afterwards, is that they don't know what Frodo was there for. Therefore they don't have him, because Frodo would have cracked and told them. And then they would have found the ring. So yeah, that was another thing. But that's the thing, you know. Oh, and at this point we got to Boromir, and he's like, he stayed dead because he's Sean Bean. No, Sean Bean doesn't die in everything he does. He doesn't even die in the majority of things he does, I don't think. This is like, okay, no, this is completely unrelated to Lord of the Rings. This is just a bugbear of mine. This is like, I just really get irritated when people are like, but it's Sean Bean, of course he's going to die. No, bad. You know, Sean Bean has acting credits that are, I think he has like, I think it's 100 odd acting credits on IMDb. Maybe just under if you count all the shops as one thing instead of separate episodes. And someone's actually put together a list of the 54 things that he's in where he lives to the end. He doesn't die in everything. Oh my god, what is it with you people? Anyway, sorry, distracted. Coming back to it. Yeah. Then there's the bit about Helm's Deep where Aragorn and Gimli hold the pass against thousands. Yeah, they're holding the bridge against thousands. You know, they're holding that little causeway against thousands and thousands and thousands. But the thousands can only hit them 4 at a time. So all they need to do is just kill 4 at a time, with the help of the guys standing on the walls throwing bits of brick and sharp sticks and, you know, just generally being annoying. And they only do it for like 10, 15 seconds maybe. Maybe as much as 30. Before they're like, right, we're good, get out. And then they run for it like they mean it. I mean, if they could have held that pass, if they could have had just 2 guys standing on that, you think that would have been their standard tactic? They wouldn't even have bothered with the gates. They'd just have had 2 guys standing there killing everything. And okay, they wouldn't have had 2 Aragorns every so often or whatever. You know, Aragorn and Gimli are meant to be some of the finest warriors in existence. But, yeah. Anyway. Oh, fun fact. Apparently, if memory serves, the gates at Helm's Deep that the Uruk-hai ram their way through apparently had to be specifically weakened so that they could ram their way through, because when they first tried, the gates were built so well by the props department that they didn't break. So they specifically had to weaken it for the Uruk-hai to even break through so the story could continue. Anyway, Oh, and when it comes to the scene where they're marching on the Black Gate, and Gimli's like, small chance of success? What are we waiting for? I tend to view that in the same way that if you ever watch Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and one of them at the end, right at the end, where half the Bolivian army's outside pointing guns at the building they're in, and one of them's like, is LaForce out there? No. Why? Oh, good. We'd be in real trouble if he was out there. You know, it's gallows humour. It's very much a, we're so dead, aren't we? Yeah. Is there anything we can do about it? No. Screw it. Let's punch him in the face before we go. You know, it's that sort of thing. I didn't figure that as, like, arrogance on his part. Anyway, let's move on. This next one's a bit tricky, because it's Arwen's life. Arwen's life is tied to the fate of the ring. Okay, no. The reason I figured that was, the reason that made sense to me was because Arwen had made herself mortal so that she could live with Aragorn. Or she had abandoned her immortal life for a mortal life, and therefore the fate of Middle-earth affected her because she'd chosen to stay there. The other elves were buggering off. They'd had enough. They were done. And actually, I think that feeds into why this makes sense to me, at least. Because Elrond's being an overprotective father and a bit of a douche, and he's lying. Okay, so like, Elrond wants Arwen to go with. He doesn't want Arwen to stay there, because then she'll get killed by the forces of darkness that he's fairly certain are going to take over and crush everything. So he tells Aragorn something that will make him send her away. He tells Aragorn that she's going to die, and Aragorn doesn't want to die, so he sends her away. That's the plan anyway. Doesn't work, whatever. And then he tells Arwen that she's not going to die, and that, yeah, she's going to have to deal with being alone forever until she goes mad. Not sounds so good, is it? So maybe you should come to the Undying Lands with me, instead of staying here with these losers. Again, it doesn't work, but that's what he seems to be trying to do. You know, it's also a sign, I think, that Elrond's given up, and there's a couple of those. I think it's the difference between him and Galadriel is Galadriel's still like, you know what? We got a shot. And Elrond's like, nope, we're done. Let's get out before it goes all wrong. And it's why they have that conversation, which leads to him sending forces to Helm's Deep. And also to ultimately, you know, fixing up the broken sword. Because Galadriel persuades him that actually, you know what, we may not be staying, but at least give the humans their fair shout. In any case, let's move on. At this point, we're down to the accusations of being a bit gay. Again, I think this is an artifact of the time in which the book was written, because at this point, like, if you read any stuff like Biggles and so on, the impression I have is that's the way things work. Okay, the writing isn't brilliant, but it's all within the context of being, like, when was it? Before World War One? Maybe around World War One? I can't remember exactly when this was written. But it's written within that context. And that's just how war buddies were back then. That's how, you know, you and your best chums go off and give the blighters a good thrashing. So we can't exactly sort of frame that in modern context, because hell, I mean, being gay wasn't what it is now. Like, the very concept of a gay pride parade, Jesus Christ, that would never happen in the early 1900s. So, you know, it's a cultural thing, I think. Oh, and Sam, like, when Sam gets sent away, the reason at least in my head, and again, this is all in my head, I could be wrong, is because the reason he goes is because he's been told to by his boss. You know, he's just following orders. The boss says to go, Sam goes. And especially because he doesn't seem to know what's happening. It's not like, did I eat the bread? It's like, but the bread was right there. I know I didn't eat it. I know he didn't eat it. I know he doesn't even like it. What the fuck is it? What happened? Oh my god, what the hell happened? I don't know. I was supposed to look after it. Oh god, I need to... Okay, I'll go. I've screwed up that badly that we're probably going to starve to death before we get there anyway. I'm sorry. You know, it was that thing, and then he realised, he finds the bread, and he's like, that little bastard. This is all him. I knew it was all him, but I couldn't prove it, and now I can. Now he has the proof that he can go back and show Frodo, and was like, here, you see this bread that I apparently ate? Huh? And then it's no longer relevant because Frodo's wrapped up in webs. Whatever. Let's move on. Sarah who? Number 2. Yeah, Saruman should have been in it. Oh my god, what the hell, Peter Jackson, if you wanted to cut something, cut, like you said, cut the things at the end. Oh my god. Because Christopher Lee's scene was good. And you know who else was pissed about it not being in? Christopher Lee was. I wouldn't piss off Christopher Lee. He knows what it sounds like when you stab a man in the back. Ugh. So yeah. Oh, quick note. Sauron isn't the Eye. Sauron is a dark, shadowy figure, which actually you get to see in The Hobbit, I think. But I can't remember exactly. But yeah, the whole point is Sauron does have a physical form. He just hasn't strapped the armor on yet because he doesn't have the ring to keep himself safe. But yeah, no. Saruman should have been in it. Like, it was a travesty. And the fact that he's still in the closing credits, for some reason, is really, really irritating. In any case, let's get back onto the final point, and this is one that I'm going to take some time on because it actually irritated me, and I was just like... The Eagles. The Eagles couldn't have stopped shit. You know, maybe somebody else could have done, but the Eagles, within the scope of the films... I mean, okay, let's go down this point by point. 1, the Eagles are gods. Yeah, but so what? So's Gandalf. And he got involved all the time. That's not even a relevant point. The big point, at least initially, was the evils of Mordor were too great. And yes, they were. Let's look at the forces they had. Like, okay, so if all they had was what we've seen in the films and nothing else, which is unlikely because, you know, chances of them having just that, slim. They've got the Drakes that the Nazgul ride, which are capable of taking on an eagle just about. And okay, Gandalf managed to shoo them away with a little light effect thing, except all they were doing then was attacking random soldiers that were our targets of opportunity. That wasn't a specific thing they really had to do, just like, haha, let's kill some dudes. If they'd been after the ring, and the Nazgul had been on their backs, they would have flown through it, because the One Ring is all that Sauron needs. They would have just have gone straight through. You know, and at that point we can also point out the fact that the Lidless Eye is watching. Because even if the Nazgul hadn't been there and it had just been the Drakes, the Lidless Eye would have stretched out their souls and looked at them. Which is not a good thing to have happen when you're half a mile up. Especially because it seems like it paralyzes people a lot. When they, it fixates them and they can't concentrate and they're like, oh shit. Or at least it's when they're wearing the ring. It may not be true otherwise, but I don't think that the big flaming eyeball in the sky would have done nothing. You know, it strikes fear into the hearts of people just by looking at them if it actually hated them. In any case, then we get to the ring wraiths. Like, they're centuries-old warriors giving off an aura of cold and death that saps the strength, and the Witch King of Angmar is a potent sorcerer in his own right. Extended edition knowledge tells us that Gandalf would not take on the Witch King because the Witch King would kill him, and the only reason he doesn't in the extended edition is because the Rohirrim turn up at exactly the right moment. Story time, it's good. Also, the Eagles would have been hamstrung by the fact that they couldn't pull the aerobatic insanity that they do with riders on because they weren't strapped on and the riders would have fallen off, at which point Frodo's functionally dead because he's fallen off an eagle and died. At which point Sauron would have gone, wait, that was the ring, everything I own, flood that area and find it. But even let's assume that they managed to get past all of that and get to the point where Frodo's standing over the edge going, no. You can't throw the ring away voluntarily. That's why Gollum had to be there to bite his freaking finger off. Gollum didn't voluntarily throw the ring away. Gollum fell off the side by accident and took it with him. Spoiler alert. So, why would he have been able to throw it away otherwise? If Gollum hadn't been there, Frodo might have been able to escape with the ring. That would have been bad. In fact, it also doesn't matter how long you have it for. We know it doesn't matter how long you have it for. Just thinking about, somebody else kills Frodo and picks it up and tries to throw it. No. Isildur had the ring for the time it took him to walk up Mount Doom. Which is probably less than half a day, probably less than half an hour. And he couldn't throw it away either. You can't just throw the ring away. That's the whole point of the ring, is that you can't give it up. It was only weighing on Frodo all the time because it didn't want to act directly, but if you actually threaten its life, it did what it did to Isildur, and he failed. That was the point at which the strength of men failed. Yeah, so... Oh, and yeah, why would the eagles not have been tempted? Galadriel was tempted. Gandalf was tempted. The eagles could have been tempted. And yes, it could have fit them, because you know what? It resizes itself to the wearer. We know this because we see Isildur pick it up, and it's the size of his palm, and then it shrinks to fit his finger. You know, it could have done that for the eagles, and then they could wear it on a talon, and then they give it back. So yeah, sneak attack makes more sense. The whole idea of getting the ring to the mountain in the first place was because they didn't have the muscle to fight Sauron. They didn't have the strength to just beat him in the face. If they could have done that, they'd have just walked over him. This is why Aragorn had to walk the paths of the dead. Because if he hadn't, they wouldn't have had the numbers to fight the Battle of the Pelennor. If they hadn't had the numbers to fight the Battle of the Pelennor and win, then they wouldn't have had the numbers to threaten the Black Gate, and Frodo and Sam would have had to walk through an entire army to get to the thing. Yeah. That's why they go there. That's why they're there. They're there as a big-ass distraction. Actually, interesting note, and I love interesting notes. If you actually look at one person who could have stopped this all from the beginning, like from the beginning of the first film, one person could have stopped all of this, and it wasn't Isildur. It was Elrond. Elrond could have ended the Lord of the Rings with one stab and a throw. Because he didn't have to touch the ring. Isildur could have kept hold of it. He could just have grabbed Isildur when Isildur's like, no, it's mine. He could have thrown him off the side. By that point, he was probably 2,000 years old or some shit. He'd got the training to throw Isildur off the side into the volcano. Boom. Problem solved. But, you know what? He didn't. So yeah. I think that's about it. I think we've got to the top of the list, and I think I've ranted enough for now. I don't want to seem like I'm being too harsh, because it was a fun review, and it was a nice list. I just disagreed with enough stuff on it that I had to write this down and then record it, and maybe if I actually upload it, then I'll upload it, but I might just decide to delete it instead. We'll have to see what happens with that. In any case, if you think I've been unreasonable, feel free to comment. As always, we'll see how the comments go. If they start turning nasty, then I'll get somebody else to read them. If you like this, if you like any of this or any of my other videos, please feel free to check out my other videos. Then please subscribe, like the videos if you like the videos. If you don't like the videos, tell me why. And I realize there's some camera issues. This isn't the best camera in the world. I know I have sort of graphical artifacts when I move my hands like this and so on. I'm working on that. Have patience. Quality will improve. Yeah, that's about it for now. I hope you guys have enjoyed, and hopefully I can find something else to rant about later. Normally what I do is StarCraft, and I'll be trying to put that out on a regular basis, but having a bit of a rant, having a bit of a go on is kind of fun, so we might try that again sometime. Well, for now, oh, and if anybody wants to design graphics for me, so I have bumpers on both beginning and end and all that sort of jazz, then that'll be good too. Right. I think that's about it. Oh yeah, follow me on Twitter @NovaWolf, and if you don't know how to spell it, then look at the YouTube channel name. It's the same. Yeah, that's good.